I watched the live face reveal of my favorite YouTuber. What I saw will always haunt me. I came from a small mining town in Arizona where there isn't a lot to do except hiking. It was good but boring area to grow up in, our population very small with little to no crimes. My father owned the quarry where a majority of the community's economic strength came from. He left me a sizable inheritance after he passed. I was able to buy a truck and a house out in the plains with a basketball court and pool. That was the sole extent of my lavish spending, but it was all I needed. Unless you count pizza, I didn't have many vices to blow my fortune on. I've never been an avid partygoer, luckily, like a lot of people my age. One indulgence I did have, though, was watching YouTube. Urban exploration became a most searched category of mine from 2009 onwards. I'd become a subscriber of a content creator and urbex vlogger named Isolation Infinity. He kept himself anonymous and didn't show his face. He had used footage of the haunts he went to as captured by the body camera strapped to his chest. His voice, baritone, had become a signature element of the channel. He traveled all around the world and went to many chilling places. These included vacant hospitals, asylums, morgues, and even train stations. He one time even stumbled upon a murder in progress. A homeless man had stomped another transient to death in a farmhouse. He uploaded edited parts of it, and it was really controversial as a decision. It almost resulted in a lifetime ban from him, but the clips did help law enforcement later on nonetheless. He was also arrested a few times for trespassing on famous estates. The Houdini Mansion in Los Angeles was one of them, but none of his fans held it against him. We respected him for being willing to get into trouble with the law in order to pursue his next viral video. Late last year, Isolation Infinity announced that he was going to have a live face reveal, and it was only going to be for his patrons, i.e. those people who gave money to his Patreon account. I contributed some funds to it on a monthly basis. I viewed him as a pioneer of his entertainment niche, and I didn't mind spending a few spare change just to help him out. He emailed me and told me that I was one of a dozen allowed to attend the live event. He further stated it would be in a password-protected chat room. He promised an exclusive video which would not make it onto the public video lineup as well. I was more interested in the latter than the former. I never cared what his appearance was, as I had already had a vision of someone in my age in their mid to late 20s, and it was hard to convince me that he would look any different than the picture in my mind's eye. Still, I wasn't going to turn down the chance to find it out. Being able to brag to his die-hard followers who did not get to experience it would be worth it alone. The night of the scheduled face reveal, I booted up my PC, kicked back on a lounge chair in the second-story room of my house, which was my little entertainment space. It was complete with the video game consoles and my beloved Alienware computer. An unopened bag of pepper jerky and a bottle of ginger ale sat next to my keyboard. I went to my email and the password was in my inbox. I followed the link and it had led me to a room with nothing in it but a red wall with a baby blue frame. The caption, "Isolation Infinity will be on shortly," rested at the bottom of the screen. I expected a home studio, and instead got what appeared to be someone's dingy basement in need of a new coat of paint. What bothered me the most was the sound of heavy machinery whirring in the background. I wrote it off as just bad plumbing. A man soon came into frame. He was slim and wore a trench coat with maroon buttons on the front. He reached down and grabbed the lens of the camera, shifting it upwards. The familiar voice we had all grown fond of started to count down. "Are you ready to see who I am?" Isolation Infinity asked. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 5, he hoisted it upwards, pointing it at his face, and I froze. He looked nothing like I visualized. He was hairless, emancipated, pale, and had marble black eyes. He reminded me of Werner Cross from the old German 1920 film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. His mouth hung open and tilted to the side as if he could not control the movements of his jaw. The most alarming thing to me was not how his features weren't flattering. It explained why he valued being off camera for most of his career. What upset me most in the beginning was how the disparity of his presaged age made me feel lied to. He always told his fans he was a young man like most of his demographic, and the individual before me on screen was in his 50s at the earliest. "I've been fantasizing about this broadcast for a long time," he said as he licked his lips. "You made this possible, and I need to show my appreciation by giving thanks in the most sincere way I know how to." He moved the camera to the left, and I couldn't believe what I had seen. A woman in her 30s sat on the grimy floor, her head down from evident exhaustion. Rusted chains circled her arms, and she wore a tattered black top, as though someone's knife or nails had left wounds on portions of her torso. Stains were on her clothes, like she had spent time in the dirt fighting someone or clawing her way out of soiled embankment before this. "Say something," he ordered her. "Tell them you can't wait to die." The blades of a chainsaw came into view and its motor revved. She whimpered in pain, and when she tried to murmur something, I saw blood drip from her mouth. I dragged the mouse cursor to the right hand of the screen to see how many people were in the chat, and the answer I received left me weak. No one else was there but me. The others had either left or were never there to begin with, and I was too stupid to notice until then. My heartbeat increased as I tried to close the window out, but I couldn't. The X symbol on the right-hand side was visible but useless. It was like every virus-infected pop-up that you couldn't escape from. "What?" Infinity Isolation asked. "You don't like it, Mark? Everything I do is to make my most devoted subscribers happy." A chill ran through me. He knew my name. It took me a second to realize how he had gotten it. It was just through my membership to his Patreon. And the fact that he was aware I was his only viewer worried me. Was I going to be the sole witness to a barbaric act of murder? "Calm down," I reassured myself. "This has got to be an elaborate prank that he's recording right now. He's wearing scary Hollywood makeup, and she's an actress. This is all for the sake of getting more views. The chainsaw has to be a prop bought off Etsy or something." Still, my hand inched towards the phone to call 911. The way the woman expressed her misery in the moment was all too convincing. I held my device closer to my ear. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mark." He stared right at the screen for a moment, his eyes making perfect contact with mine. Can he see me? He lifted the chainsaw above the woman's head, bringing it down with a noise from his throat which sounded like a cross between a scream and a laugh. A fountain of gore spurted out. The lens got hit with crimson bubbles. He cackled as I unplugged my computer, carried it down to my car, and drove to the nearest police station. I filed out an incident report in the office with a dying lamp and the scowl of a detective facing me. He looked as though he would rather have been anywhere else but work. For the first 2 hours there, I had to convince them that I wasn't a crazy person. They thought I was here to waste their time with a fanciful tale of my correspondence with some creep. I hope it was all a hoax, I said. "If this is not real, no one be happier about it than me. Here's my computer. See if you can trace where he's at in case it..." I gagged before I could complete my thought. The idea of it being authentic was overwhelming. They had cybercrimes go over everything, and a few days later I got my PC back. It was about a week later I had received a call from someone working the case. She was a homicide investigator named Samantha Brown. "We found the killer was streaming from a bunker in Virginia," she said. "It's an old fallout shelter abandoned since the Cold War. He calls himself the I-73 Butcher. It's that highway's preferred route, uses it as a screen name on the dark web." "Infinity Isolation is a serial killer?" I asked, feeling a knot in my stomach. "No," she said. "The real Isolation Infinity is someone else. This maniac poses as famous people, uses a combination of tools including voice-altering software and encrypted Wi-Fi. He hacks into their accounts and gets a thrill out of making complete strangers watch his acts of terror. His tech-savvy ways also allow him to control other people's webcams, and we don't know how many people he's breached. He's been on several most wanted lists of different agencies, but we've never been able to find out what he looks like. The faces he uses on those terrible live streams are just prosthetics. He has maintained stringent anonymity and avoided the news cycle. I'm sorry you had to see such torment. The good part is you turned everything in, and the computer at least helped us find his last known whereabouts. But the scene's been searched and, we could only find some evidence." "Wait, he's still out there somewhere?" "For now." I went to bed that night with a host of emotions. I felt violated by a complete monster that had sabotaged my privacy. Moreover, I felt dumb for getting swindled. I still feel shivers over the fact that he's not apprehended. Word of what happened got to the real Isolation Infinity, who, as of late, has just deleted his entire channel. Many speculated on how victims mistaking him for an insane person perturbed him. Sometimes, as I lay my head down and drift to sleep, I hear a noise by my window. I jump up and think it's a chainsaw, but so far it's just been a neighbor's lawnmower every time, and I really hope it stays that way.